Hey, what's happening, everybody? It is episode 319 of the F and Marks podcast. It is also Money in the Bank Saturday, one of the best days of wrestling of the year. I always enjoyed the spectacle of Money in the Bank. You know, I think there was talk for a little bit of Money in the Bank becoming kind of part of WrestleMania again at some point, but they realized that they had such a cash cow with the event. You know, Triple H, part of his thing when he took over is he wanted, the matches to mean something and not just be a gimmicky pay-per-view. But, they're still doing Money in the Bank, and they're going to be doing it at a, very loud arena in England. If last night on Smackdown is any indication of what it's going to be like, it's going to be loud and it's going to be pretty freaking awesome in a few short hours. So Brainless One will be joining me shortly. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the things that went on at Forbidden Door. We got an awful lot to talk about. We have also, unfortunately, the passing of another professional wrestler from the past, and we'll have to get into that a little bit. But, all in all, for this weekend, but we will get into it shortly.
Yeah. Yeah.
We made the shirt first. I'll just say that. We made the shirt first.
Well, like I told you and Jeff the other day, I fully intend on suing WWE. It's such good shit, pal. I fully intend on suing WWE so that I can finance my presidential campaign for 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah? Guy, rule, White House, 2024 collision course.
Yes.
Make America brainless again.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let me talk to you.
Let me talk to you. And honestly, Jay, I was listening, as I was waiting to join the chat and everything, and it's unfortunate about the news that we do have to discuss a little bit, but man, I am so excited for Money in the Bank later today. I really am. I'll give WWE a lot of credit, even though it looks very, very likely that a certain someone's going to win one of these matches. I'm telling you, almost every single match is wide open.
Yeah, it certainly has that feeling.
Yeah. And I'm really excited. I think that we don't have a clear-cut winner in the men's. I don't think we have a clear-cut winner in the women's. And WWE has been teasing that there's going to be one major upset today.
And one of the things that's going on is clearly, just a shade over a month away, we got SummerSlam. So this is going to bode like big consequences for what happens there. We're hearing that, there's a couple of big ideas for Brock Lesnar coming up. There's rumblings maybe that Bray Wyatt may be close to returning. We're hearing word now that, it's not just coming from, Gable Stevenson's mouth. It's coming from other people's mouths that dude is now, really getting it.
Yeah.
So there are things like that bandied about. I mean, do we have the return of the Viper? I mean, there are an awful lot of things that could come into play that aren't even in the current storylines. I think a lot of those possibilities could be big time matches for next month in Detroit or month.
And don't even rule out the fact that Drew McIntyre could even come out today. There's so much, and I know that we're going to do the predictions for the matches and everything, but that we're going to have to make a prediction of who we think is going to be the surprise appearance for today.
Sure.
So, I'm excited. I really am.
Yeah, I'm excited for the card. When I was writing down the matches, I'm going, this card is stacked. Yeah. And I love the UK audiences. They're always mega loud. Might be the only crowd of this year that might be able to rival what Puerto Rico did at Backlash.
I mean, LA Knight, if he wins today, will get that Bad Bunny reception today.
No doubt.
And honestly, Randy Orton comes out, he's going to get a loud pop. Cody Rhodes, everybody knows, is going to get a loud pop. And we got a small sample of it yesterday watching SmackDown, because I'll tell you right now, and Sami Zayn, over the last year, has been getting some incredible pops. Yeah. That one was up there as one of the top 2 or 3 pops since he turned on the bloodline.
And, I mean, that crowd for LA Knight was just freaking electric. And I loved how, LA Knight came out. And I love the barbs between him and Logan Paul, where Paul just calls him the mega manager. And I mean, it was a great little barb. But LA Knight's like going, hey, everybody else seems to know whose ring this is. I thought it was a great segment. And then, like, when they had everybody, like, come down to the ring and just mass chaos. And I loved when Butch came in, and they're like going, yeah, I don't think he's going to talk.
It was funny, too, because he did the same thing when he came out on Monday, not this past Monday, but the Monday before, when Logan Paul announced himself for Money in the Bank, and they had everybody come out and talk and everything. And then, of course, there's Pete Dunne coming to the ring and just wants to beat the shit out of somebody.
Right.
So.
And that is one of the rumors going about, that we might get a Brawling Brutes and Logan Paul feud after Money in the Bank. So
I just want Pete Dunne back. The Butch thing needs to go away. I mean, Matt Riddle's Matt Riddle again. I mean, we saw what happened on Tuesday. Somebody else has got their gimmick back.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are getting their old songs and their old gimmicks back. Pete Dunne needs to be Pete Dunne again.
And kind of this plays into this a little bit, is there have been reports that they have been trying to Vince-proof both SmackDown and Raw. And one way they're doing it specifically for SmackDown, I don't think they're doing it with Raw so much, is they're advertising matches ahead of time. Because the belief is like, well, if something's advertised, Vince traditionally, like, wants to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
How many times, though, have we been advertised matches that don't end up happening? And it's like, the dastardly Vince McMahon sits there and makes a call to Triple Paul and says, hey, pal, I don't like the idea of this match. Hey, can we just have somebody beat this person up so we don't make this match happen? Thanks, pal.
And honestly, like what he did last week on Raw, when everybody was all up in arms, like Vince McMahon completely rearranged it and changed everything. And I know we talked about how Ciampa would have benefited more having the match against Rollins in his return match instead of fighting the Miz, and they tried to make it work. I'm sorry. Right. The way that they booked that Finn Balor, beating the snot out of Seth Rollins, hitting him with 3 coup de grace, I enjoyed that a hell of a lot more than I would have enjoyed Tommaso Ciampa and Seth Rollins. And it's not a slight on those two wrestling.
Sure.
If you're going to change it and you want to help build a storyline, what they did was the best way to do it. And then obviously having Finn come out the next night when Seth was defending the title against Braun Breaker on NXT, and he got involved in that. That's how you do it. And if it's stuff like that, I can understand, but I agree. How many times have we heard it? Because, like, the old saying is, cards subject to change. And, of course, that's Vince's way of getting out of doing stuff. And it's like, all right. I would appreciate it if Vince didn't go in there and just completely destroy things, because even though he has a couple of good ideas here and there, a lot of times he goes in there and just blows things up and it makes it worse. Because it's such good shit, pal.
Chris Brown saying for SummerSlam that he's hearing the match is set in stone, or Cody Lesnar in a gimmick match in Logan Paul versus Bad Bunny. I want to say that there was another match that's more or less like they know it's going to happen. I'm blanking on it at the moment. It'll probably come back to me.
Is it Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio?
I don't think that one's necessarily set in stone. I mean, with some of the predictions we were like, some of the crazy booking we were talking a couple of weeks ago, like, is it possible that like Finn Balor wins tonight, but Damian Priest wins the Money in the Bank, and because there's a little bit of friction there, maybe he cashes in immediately? You just don't know. And then you have a spooky pal demolition on SummerSlam, but part of that I think might take away from the Bloodline storyline because they're having their own civil war. So I don't think they'll have multiple civil wars going on between the couple shows. But
well, one thing I could see though, if they do go the route where Finn Balor does beat Seth Rollins, because I'm not convinced Seth Rollins is walking out with the championship tonight. That is the one that I could flip a coin and either one of them I would pick and feel fine with picking them. But if Finn wins tonight, I don't want to see Priest cash in on him. I think it would bring an extra element and just add a little bit more to juice to the Spooky Pals if Finn Balor is the World Heavyweight Champion and Damian Priest is in his faction, but at any moment can cash in on him. So that just kind of extends and makes that storyline that much better.
Or he could also cash in on the Tribal Chief at some point if he wanted to.
Yes.
That way, Pals, control the heavyweight title, the Universal title, and they also control the women's title, whatever they're calling the one that Rhea has right now.
If that's the case, and then they put the if Dominic Mysterio is the one that takes the Intercontinental title off of Gunther, I'm going to break my television.
Yeah.
I like Dom, but there's no way. Like, you look at Dominic Mysterio and you look at Gunther, and you're going to tell me that Dominic Mysterio can beat Gunther in a match. Gunther, who is, in my opinion, the best total package star that they have in WWE. He's one of the best in the ring. He's got a presence about him. He gets a reaction from the crowd. He can talk on the microphone. He's a five-tool wrestler that WWE has. And
let me talk.
And Dominic Mysterio, yes, he can get a reaction from the crowd, and he's gotten a lot better on the microphone, but let's be serious. Dominic Mysterio is not very good in the ring.
Not yet.
He'll get there. Eventually he'll get there because it takes time. And how many years did people crush The Miz for the fact that he wasn't that good in the ring? And now The Miz can handle himself in the ring.
And one thing that gives a lot of hope is what happened at WrestleMania. Dom and Ray had a really good match.
Yeah.
Clearly it's like, oh, yes, it's the dude who taught him how to wrestle, the dude who's been wrestling, for over 30 years, I think, at this point.
Yep.
Guiding him along, and it was his father. And it's like, all right, but the fact that he has gotten away in his moveset from more or less trying to be a Rey Mysterio clone, it's like, I'm sorry, Dom, you're a foot taller than your dad, and you can't do those moves like he does.
No, nobody could do the 619 like Ray.
So, yeah.
Yeah? Well, should we start with the bad news for the day then?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, yesterday we found out that former Attitude Era wrestler Darren Drozdov, former NFL player Darren Drozdov, passed away at the age of 54 from natural causes. And it's unfortunate because he had such a promising career that was cut short due to an unfortunate injury in a botch. I think it was a powerbomb botch or a pile driver botch from D'Lo Brown, and he was never able to walk again. He was a paraplegic. And, the guy could have been bitter about what happened, but he took it. He was humble about it, and he made the best of it. And it is unfortunate when somebody, especially at the age of 54, passes away unexpectedly. So,
and certainly thoughts, prayers going out to his family at this point. And quite honestly, thoughts and prayers going out to D'Lo Brown, too.
Yeah.
I know D'Lo carried a lot of guilt over what happened with Droz, and he's made as much peace with it as he could. But I'm sure right now D'Lo in his mind is like, guy could have lived till he was 80. And I bet it's from, the mess up in that match that he's no longer with us. Like you said, Droz did the best he could with what happened. It seemed like he was really happy, despite what happened. He was happy in his life and made the best of it. And I think that's all you can really do. Sometimes you're dealt a pretty crappy hand, and you could either become old, angry, and bitter about what could have been, instead of going, this is what is, and I have to move on. And like you said, his wrestling career, he had a lot of potential. I mean, the fact that they, made him part of the like LOD and part of the storyline. Now, the tastefulness of that storyline, having having the drug problem, which was like similar to the Scott Hall having the drinking problem in WCW, or when Jeff Hardy having the drinking problem when he came back to WWE in his last run. It's like, but clearly they had a lot of hopes for him by putting him in a spot like that, with one of the most decorated and what many still consider the greatest tag team of all time, and you're inserting him into that. So he had a lot of potential. It's sad that his career was cut short, and it's sad that his life has been cut short too. But I think that's about all I could say about that.
Go ahead, do it, Jay. You're gonna say it. What is Darren Drozdov best known for?
He's gonna puke. Oh my God, he's gonna puke. He's gonna puke.
I forget where it was. I don't know if it was like a video package they did on Droz, or if they were doing a documentary on Droz or something like that. But I remember they were talking about him, and he was in a match with Mark Henry. And in the middle of the match, he puked and got it all over Mark Henry. And you can see Mark Henry going, damn, he puked on me.
And that was the thing is, like, I think when Vince was talking with him for that thing that ended up on Beyond the Mat, they said, well, is there anything that's like really unique about you? He's like, well, I can puke on command, which is what made Vince, he's gonna puke.
Typical Vince. He loves some kind of a shtick about somebody. And it's such good shit, pal. And I'll tell you, like, and just kind of, since we're on the Drozdov thing, I know Mark Henry went out and he had said, because Mark Henry was really close to Darren Drozdov. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And he had posted something about Darren Drozdov and how he loved to hunt, even though he was still in the chair. He was still able to go and hunt and live his life. And people are like, I can't believe that you are condoning somebody who is going out there and hunts and kills innocent animals. And he's like, dude, there's a time and a place for this, and this is not it. The dude just passed away. And it's stuff like that really just irks me about people. And it's like, you got to read a room. I know that we're in a time where social media is, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how hard you try, if you put something out there, somebody is going to have a differing opinion of you no matter what.
And speaking of which, and not reading the room, John Cena was out for dinner with a friend of his, and some douchebag fan, and recorded this, said, hey man, can you do the you can't see me? And Cena just like, can I enjoy time with my friend, please? And just shut it down, and the dude stops recording. But it's like, the gall of people to just think these people are at their beck and call. I mean, we had the podcast, a few months ago where it was like, wrestlers the hell alone. I mean, even with Jeff Harvey a few weeks ago, he was hounded in the airport, and just being, the congenial guy he is, he signed a whole bunch of crap, and clearly those people were not fans. They were autograph seekers who were trying to sell, Jeff Hardy's signature on stuff. For two things, it was like 10.
And honestly, there was a female wrestler this week. For the life of me, I forgot who it was, and of course, I forgot to write that down of all the things I wrote down. But there was a female wrestler this week that even came out on social media and said, "Look, I am sick and tired of this. I don't want you coming up to me at the hotel. I don't want you coming up to me at the airport, and I don't want you coming up to me in my personal time so I can sit there and sign all this shit for you. Get a real job."
Mm.
And I'll tell you, like, I remember 2014 when the Giants drafted Odell Beckham. And I've been to the Giants training camp before. I enjoyed myself. It was a good time and everything. But it was to a point when he was there and they would sign the autographs, and all the parents were rushing and getting the kids out of the way to get these autographs, so that the Giants are like, listen, if you want an autograph from any of the players from now on, you have to be 12 or under. And I completely agreed with that when they did that. And I think that that's what they should do in wrestling. It's like, no, why should I sign it on? Because if I was wrestling, I wouldn't sign shit.
Like, when the wrestlers are no longer in the ring and they're doing like the conventions, it's like, if you want to get the autograph, pay for it from them. That's perfectly fine. I mean, you're paying them, they're working, but you're paying them for their time, and to get a personalized thing. It's like, back there, I got that autograph from Iron Sheik. I paid to get the autograph from him, and have about 30 seconds of his time. But yeah, fans just need to learn etiquette. It's so much of society, it feels like today, is like me, mine, and I need instant gratification, and if I don't get it, I'm gonna go right. So good for Cena for standing up for himself. Good for Liv Morgan. It was Liv Morgan, Chris Brown said, that had the issue earlier this week, and that like we said before, leave them the hell alone. Let them have a life. I know they're public figures, but leave them the hell alone.
Especially when you're trying to make a quick buck off of them, and it's like, why should I help you make money off of what I've done? And like you said, if they're going to a convention and paying for the tickets like you did for the Iron Sheik, like when I went to the show for Big Time Wrestling or Top Rope Promotions, whatever it was, in Webster, Mass, where I got to meet Rob Van Dam, and the first time I ever got to witness Effin Mark's Hall of Famer Sean O. And just for meeting RVD and getting to see Sean O was worth the $50 I paid. And that I can understand, getting the autographs, getting the pictures and stuff like that. But like, if you're at the airport, who the hell wants to have people come up to him and go, can I have your autograph? If it's a kid, yes. If it's some like 8-year-old kid, he's trying to catch a flight and he comes up, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to sign that autograph. But if it's a bunch of dudes that look like you and I that are coming up to us and they have like 47 autographs, I'm not signing shit.
Right.
Get a real job. So it's stuff like that just bothers me.
So one thing that I thought was an interesting piece of information that came out, I think it was through Pro Wrestling Tees. Sami Zayn was trying to have a raffle for his My Dog shirt and had like all the bloodlines sign it, and had a whole bunch of other performers sign it. Sounds like it did really well, but then when the person won the raffle, they were told, oh, by the way, we had a cease and desist order sent for this. So, and they don't know who the cease and desist order came from. And like, one of the things was saying that possibly it was because of one of the people that had signed the T-shirt, and they had some sort of exclusivity thing. But you would think that anybody who signed the shirt was like, hey, yeah, I'm cool with this. I want to raise money for this charity for Sammy. Or did somebody else have My Dog is like a trademark thing to do this? But either way, the person who won the raffle was given their money back. But it doesn't sound like the other people who entered into the raffle were given their money back at this point. Which, to me, it's like going, wait, if the whole raffle was like no bueno, everybody should get their money back.
Yeah.
They should come up with like an alternate prize.
Right. I agree. And it was crazy too because everybody was speculating because he had tweeted out after it was announced that something had happened, and he was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And people are like, "Is it because of the situation with the raffle, or is it because the Montreal Canadiens passed on somebody that they shouldn't have in the NHL draft?" Which would seem Sami Zayn, I wouldn't put it past him for either one of those. But I'm curious because like, what if it was I hate to say it, but like, what if it was one of the Young Bucks? Like, no, I don't want them to do this. This is good publicity. This isn't good for WWE.
Chris Brown is saying he's like, it was probably effing Fanatics.
Oh, I wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah.
Although Fanatics is a couple steps above what the WWE shop was. And the guy that works
the shop, though, they did officially release this week the greatest shirt that they have ever come up with.
Austin 316?
It is your shirt. I'll just say that.
No,
yeah.
That's not the greatest shirt because, number one, Austin 316 is the greatest one. And this shirt is better than the one that they have on the website because this is the OG Gas shirt. Yeah?
Yeah.
And honestly, on a serious note, I'm actually happy for LA Knight because if they're making merchandise for you and that shirt is going to sell.
No doubt it will be the top seller this weekend at Money in the Bank.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Every Brit that is in the crowd is going to be wearing that shirt today. I wouldn't put it past them. And I'll tell you, like, that's going to sell. If the Yes shirts sold like they did, the Yes shirts are going to sell like they're just like it.
Hey, you know what? I may put my money where my mouth is and buy a Yes shirt from them just so, like, maybe it'll finally knock the old dastardly villain Vince McMahon in the head and say, push this effing guy. Because, oh, by the way, when you brought AJ Styles here to this company a few years ago, he was like 39 years old, and guess what? He got pushed as a top star, and guess what? He's still performing at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
You can LA Knight at his current age and have him be a top star. You know, the other guys that we brought up in the last couple of weeks, like Brock Lesnar, like he already had like a large following within WWE in the world, right? You know, you got other folks up there in their like early and mid 40s that are still doing well, but they had kind of had stuff built in. With AJ Styles, he just had his time in New Japan and Impact Wrestling.
What is that? Remember, they didn't acknowledge that.
They didn't know what the hell they were going to get from him.
Right.
And when the crowd went bonkers, when Kevin Dunn got distracted by damn pictures, quite honestly, the swell for LA Knight right now is greater than it was for AJ Styles then. Booker T says, put the rocket on that man. Right now, I saw a report earlier this week that, you know, Vince McMahon was preferring Logan Paul to win Money in the Bank, where Triple Paul was more in the line of either Damian Priest or having LA Knight win. We all know who wins that argument.
But here's my thing. If Logan Paul's going to do it, it's silly to have him do it. If you're sitting here and you created a world heavyweight champion who you said was going to defend the title anytime, any place, anywhere, whatever. You have a part-timer, which is the reason why we now have said world heavyweight championship. So having Logan Paul, who is technically a part-timer, win the Money in the Bank. I know that it brings a little bit more intrigue because of the fact that, you know, Logan Paul's never there. We don't know when to expect him to show up, and just magically he appears. But I don't want to see Logan Paul with the Money in the Bank. I'm sorry, I do not.
And I think Vince sees the opportunity of like, oh, well, you know, he'll have the briefcase showing up in his Impulsive podcast, which will get eyes on a WWE product that wouldn't normally get it. You know, does he end up showing up like when his brother Jake goes against, I think it's Nate Diaz, man.
That's Nate Diaz and shit.
And has the money in the bank with him. Does he do stuff like that? And that's like something where if LA Knight goes somewhere, he's not going to bring in anybody new. But again, listen to the damn crowd. And it's not just England. It's been everywhere they've gone.
They chanted for him in Saudi Arabia. So, my whole thing is, yes, I get it. He's got the podcast. He's got his brother fighting Nate Diaz and shit. And he could do all this stuff and bring it wherever the hell he wants to go. He can go and do interviews wherever. This is the same asshole who went to the suicide forest in Japan and was recording dead bodies hanging from the tree. Yeah, that's what you need, Vince. You need Logan Paul to show up in the suicide forest in Japan with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Look at this asshole doing this and showing dead bodies while holding the WWE briefcase. Yeah. By the way, how did it work out when Bad Bunny was 24/7 champion? When you had NASCAR drivers and ESPN personalities winning that title? Where were the eyeballs on that? Nobody cared about that. You could do it.
To win this match and then to go win the TNT title from whoever the TNT title holder is right now.
The Dino Man.
Dino Man, that's right. Dino Man won on the first episode of Collision.
Oh, shit. Thank you. I've just remembered something. I got to write it down real quick.
Yeah?
Yeah? Oh, there it is. I put it in front of me so I wouldn't lose it, and I couldn't find
it. Beautiful. All right. A couple other interesting things that have happened this week that on the music end of things that I'm appreciative of. MVP dropped a new song. I gave it a listen. It's a fun little ditty. It's mostly about pro wrestling. I don't know if you heard it yet, but pretty solid stuff.
This is the first I've heard that he actually released this song.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned the music because Little Uzi Vert, I think his name is, also dropped a Shinsuke Nakamura song, and I was listening to it before the podcast, and I was like, this isn't half bad.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, I was listening to that. I'm like, all right, I could dig this. I could dig this. And on the same musical bit, I know last week on the podcast I had mentioned to you and Chris Brown and all that were watching about the possible remix of the Vipers theme song. I sent it to you both. What did you think of it?
I am the ultimate creature of habit. So one of my least favorite things in this entire world is change. To give you context, they redesigned the Kroger that is in Yorktown that I like to frequent. When I realized that they were rearranging the store, I almost turned around and walked out.
Yeah.
So I'm not an overly huge fan of change. It's not bad. It's going to get some time to get used to. I like the other one better. I like the older version better. And like I told you last week, I didn't like Voices when it first came out. I actually liked the song that he hated. So yeah, it's going to take some time. It's not bad. It's different.
To me, it was more reminiscent of like, it wasn't a wholesale change. It was kind of like the variations they did with the Rock's theme throughout the years, where it's like,
yeah,
okay, we did a little bit more guitar, and it was a different "If You Smell What the Rock Is Cooking," because at one point it was like, "Do you smell what the Rock is cooking?" Very much like low key, and then the one where, "If you smell," you know, little variations and what have you. And this was not wholesale change. It was kind of a tweak. just like they did with Nakamura. Like, remember, we were all like going, he has like the greatest theme song. Like, why would you tweak that? And then you hear the tweak and you're like, oh, yeah, this actually is better. Holy shit.
It's amazing how somebody can go from having a top 3 entrance song to the number 1 entrance song, because you think it's very impossible that the original song could be better than it is, and then you give us that. And it's funny, too, because when Bray Wyatt became the Fiend, they took the same lyrics from his original entrance song, and they made it more hardcore metal instead of, like, mysteriously rockish type of thing.
Yeah.
I still prefer his old entrance. The Fiend one was cool, but I still prefer the original one.
With Bray, still one of my favorite entrances is when they had the live performance is with the buzzard. And I forget which WrestleMania match it was, but
31.
It was been Undertaker. He and Undertaker, maybe.
31. Because I remember I was like, it's cool entrance, but then they kind of exploited what he does on the way to the ring because it was like 2 in the afternoon and it was brighter than a freaking light bulb. And it's like, oh, you just kind of ruined this for me.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, like, if they're going to host WrestleMania on the West Coast, do it in a dome.
Put it in a dome.
Because, like, The Undertaker should not be coming out when it's sunshine and bright and wonderful out. And
that's why we got that half-hour Rock and Ronda Rousey segment with Triple H and Stephanie, because they wanted it to get a little darker.
Yeah.
Almost worked. Speaking of The Undertaker, playa, we had the 25th anniversary this week of the most famous Hell in a Cell match of all time, the one between Mankind and The Undertaker. And I don't know if you watched that full clip of Foley and Undertaker watching the match. It was great. I mean, Undertaker just freaking hilarious, and he and Foley's recollection of all that stuff, you know, pretty good. The fact that Foley remembers any of it is amazing, but just hearing the two of them talk about it was very cool. What did you see, and what did you think?
I got 2 points. I haven't seen the watch along between Foley and The Undertaker yet. I have not. But 2 points. Number one, if WWE does decide to start putting actual matches into their Hall of Fame, it'd be hard pressed for that to be the first. I'd be hard pressed to have that be the first one, because there's no more iconic of a match 25 years later, and we're still talking about it.
So Mick Foley has said in other instances, and like when he and Undertaker were together in this room talking, said, you know what, I really did not appreciate this match for a long time because it's all anybody ever wanted to talk about. And he's like, quite honestly, he's like, my career was more than that, and it felt like, you know, everything else was overlooked. And he's like, it wasn't until The Undertaker said to me one day, he's like, going, and The Undertaker, you know, still calls me Jack from Cactus Jack, because that, you know, when they first met in World Championship Wrestling, WCW, you know, he was Cactus Jack. But he's like, you know, Jack, this match is going to outlive us. People will still be talking about this match after we're gone. And not every wrestler gets that. You know, people are still talking about Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. That match has outlived the Macho Man.
Hogan and the Giant. People still talk about Hogan slamming the Giant at WrestleMania 3, and Andre's been dead for 3 decades.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to Hulk Hogan, he's been dead for 3.5 decades.
I mean, to be fair, I can understand why they've been talking about it for 3 decades, because, you know, after he slammed the Giant died like 9 days later.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, he was the second person to die from sustaining injuries in a match at WrestleMania 3.
Right. And I think Andre the Giant went through a Chris Hero-esque metamorphosis through that night. You know, he weighed in at 525 pounds before the match, But by the time the match happened, he was like closer to 700. That's what Hulk Hogan says. We know that is the God's honest truth. 700 pounds.
I cannot believe for the longest time that I actually believed the rumors that Hulk Hogan tore ligaments in his back when he slammed the Giant. Because I thought that was like the legitimate thing. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because, like, look at him. He's old now and he's always having constant back surgeries. And then I listened to Cornette and goes, he's full of shit. He goes, he didn't hurt his back. He goes, Andre let whoever he wants slam him. Andre made it happen. So he did not tear all the ligaments, just like The Undertaker did not drop the Hulk Hogan on his head when he tombstoned him, when he went on the chair in that match when he won the world title, and made The Undertaker feel like shit for 2 years.
We all know, though, it's 100% true that Hulk Hogan wrestled 400 matches in a year.
400 days.
400 days in a
yes.
year. 100% true. And it was during his time off from touring with Metallica as their bassist. And that part where he missed out on the Foreman grill, I mean, because he was taking a dump. I mean,
it was he was taking the kids to school, which is why he missed the call for the Foreman grill. Just like he was supposed to be the lead, the bassist for Metallica. There was another band he was apparently, maybe the Rolling Stones was going to make him their bassist too.
I mean, he legit was a bassist in a band while he was starting up his pro wrestling career, I bet that's why Elvis was a big fan of his. He probably wanted Hulk Hogan to be the bass player in his band. He's like...
It's one that we don't mention of all the Hogan rumors or, the fake lies that he's been telling, was after WrestleMania 2, he said that he partied with John Belushi after WrestleMania 2, even though John Belushi died in 1982. Because of the fact that, and it's because of the fact that at any given time, because they were at 3 different locations, they were in LA, New York, and I think Chicago for WrestleMania 3. They held it at 3 different locations, so he could have been at any one of those. Sorry, WrestleMania 2, I apologize.
3 was at the Superdome, brother. Oh, wait. Silverdome, brother.
And my other point I wanted to mention about The Undertaker and Foley, and it's something that I cannot believe. It's more egregious than me never seeing the Shockmaster until you showed me what the Shockmaster was all about and how you got me to convinced that PN News was going to fall off the scaffold in the scaffolding match. 25 years, I have never seen Foley and Taker's Hell in a Cell match. I cannot believe that I can admit this. I don't know how it's possible with all the years that we had the network that I've never maybe I should just go watch Undertaker and Foley in the Hell in a Cell. I have never seen that match. And I'm very disappointed in myself that I can admit that. That might be the most egregious match that I've never witnessed that I should have, considering that, I'm a co-host of a podcast about wrestling.
Hey, I have my own version of that match, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 13. It wasn't until a few years ago that I finally actually sat down and watched that sucker. But I'll have to say that, having the network and having something that is so iconic that it builds on a life of its own and ends up, becoming Hall of Fame worthy. Clash 13 is something that should be considered for WWE Hall of Fame also. And Tim, when I told Bobby about PN News falling through the ring, once it was revealed to him that he didn't really fall through the ring, I'm like, that wasn't mine, that was Tim's. Because we convinced my brother also that PN News was going to fall through the ring, and he was going against a couple of WWE Hall of Famers. One Stone Cold Steve Austin was in that match.
What?
And also beautiful Bobby Eaton was in it. I forget. I don't think it was the Midnight Express in that match. Otherwise, Sweet Stan Lane, actually beautiful isn't a Hall of Famer yet. That's a tragedy.
And it's funny because they have talked to Cornette about it, and he said that of all the guys who were in the Midnights, Stan Lane, Beautiful Bobby, and who was the other guy before Stan Lane?
Dennis Condrey.
Dennis Condrey. He said that, yes, I would take the Hall of Fame. He goes, I would do it just for the publicity. He goes, but he's like, I really don't want to go into the Hall of Fame. He goes, the only one that would have gotten a kick out of being in the Hall of Fame was Beautiful Bobby, just because that he would have loved to give a speech. You know, Dennis Condrey and Stan Lane are both kind of in their 70s, and they don't really travel as much. So they're like, it'd be kind of an inconvenience for us to do it. So they missed it. But they are in our Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yes.
They were the second tag team to ever be put into the Effin Marks Hall of Fame, and they are well deserving of it. Bobby Eaton, to me, is one of the most grossly underrated and underappreciated wrestlers of all time. That Alabama Slammer that he did, or Alabama Jammer, the leg drop off the top, oh my God, that was a thing of beauty. I could watch Bobby Eaton wrestle a mop, and I would have been happy just to watch that.
As long as it's not a blow-up doll.
Speaking of blow-up dolls, since you did mention that the Wrestling Observer newsletter gave Twinkle Toes and the Ostrich 6 out of 5 stars.
Of course. I mean, if it was at the Tokyo Dome.
Oh, God. What is it about freaking Meltzer with the people with the last names that begin with a vowel? Omega, Okada, Osprey, Ibushi. All these guys are getting 5-star matches. How is Will Ospreay, apparently by the Wrestling Observer newsletters, is now the greatest wrestler of all time because he's got the most 5-star or more matches in his career, and he's only like 31. I watched that match. Someone needs to explain to me how that match was 1.25 stars better than Steamboat and Savage at WrestleMania 3.
Or I think also 1.25 stars better than Shawn and Undertaker at WrestleMania 25.
How is that match that much better than any Kurt Angle match? Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels wasn't even a 5-star match.
And that match was like off the chain. I love the fact that like Vince told the two of them, you guys choose who wins. Like when Vince doesn't even care who wins, like that's telling you something.
And I'll tell you right now, that was one match that I had not seen when it happened because at that time I was already out as a fan. I wasn't watching anymore. So the fact that I was able, when I got the network, you bet your ass I made sure I watched Angle and Shawn Michaels. There was like 5 matches I had to watch. That and Hogan and Shawn Michaels from SummerSlam 2005 were on the top of my list of things I had to watch.
All right. Chris Brown saying Meltzer smokes a bowl of crack before he watches any New Japan event. And that's the only explanation for these ratings for the past 5+ years. All right. Then Tim says Meltzer snorts coke off Tony Khan's dick.
No, Meltzer is so far up Kenny and the freaking Yuck's ass so much that when he sneezes, they get a headache.
Yeah.
I can't. And it's funny, too, because somebody had posted, I'm going to have to see if I can find it again. Somebody had posted a picture, it wasn't this past week, but the week before, there was a guy on the Walmart website where they sell costumes for the Young Bucks, and the guy in the picture looks a hell of a lot like Meltzer. And Cornette, and it's funny, and I hate the fact that I keep mentioning Cornette, but he brings up a lot of good points. There's things I don't agree with him on, but there are a lot of good points. He goes, what kind of man in his 60s is going to look that happy wearing that attire? He goes, I'm telling you, he goes, I wouldn't put it past him that it was actually Meltzer. Because he's the only type of person who would be excited about wearing some kind of goofy shit like that.
Right. So you mentioned Cornette, and Cornette, who is a big part of Dark Side of the Ring, also had a big part in this week's Dark Side of the Ring episode on Junkyard Dog. And I was actually confused for about 10 minutes into this thing. I thought 100% that I had seen the big cat. I thought I saw him. It was Coco Beware. Because he had the Big Cat's sunglasses on, the Mr. Hughes sunglasses on. And then like, into it, they finally put like Coco Beware, WWE Hall of Famer. I'm like, ugh. I'm like, why was he trying to look like the Big Cat?
It was funny too because because I watched it and
Big Cat.
When you texted me and you were like the Big Cat was in there, and I was like, well, I'm like they did mention that they brought in a whole bunch of dudes to try to replace JYD in what was it, Mid-South?
Yeah.
And when he jumped to WWE, and they brought in a whole bunch of different people, and it's like you should have just found a wrestler. You shouldn't have worried about, the fact that you lost a black wrestler. I hate to say it like that, but and obviously that's where they got Butch Reed.
Yeah.
And like I understood it was like, yeah, Butch Reed could wrestle, but it's like he's not the JYD.
Doesn't have the same charisma, and Butch Reed always worked better as a heel anyway.
And I always appreciated Butch Reed. He could always have a good match with just about anybody. But it was funny because when I watched it, I almost texted you and put, oh, Jay, look, The Line is in this documentary about the JYD.
And he was completely perfect to be in this episode, and he wrestled with JYD in the same places and what have you, and just kind of listening to the story of JYD, there were a few things that I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't completely line up with everything where well, they were talking about JYD being upset that, he wasn't getting the same push he was getting in Mid-South when he came to WWF. And, he had the charisma, he had the fans backing him, and he was like, well, what the heck? And then later on, they start talking like, oh, well, he started no-showing. And I bet a lot of why he wasn't pushed as high up the card as he was hoping is Vince probably noticed that he had a strong addiction issue. Jake the Snake Roberts, who knows a thing or two about addiction, said, yeah, me and JYD had a lot of drugs together, and just, he just never got out from underneath the thumb of it, and hearing, the stories of the last few years of his life. I mean, it's just.
I still remember the day he passed, because I was devastated because I was always a fan of the JYD, and I was very, very devastated to hear him when he passed, especially after finding out that he died falling asleep driving home from his daughter's high school graduation. That made it even worse.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even know this, but I didn't realize his daughter had passed away, at the age of 31. She had a ruptured heart valve, I believe it was, and there's nothing they could do.
Yeah, it's a real bummer, and I like, seeing and hearing the stories. Certainly don't like kind of the bad outcomes of a lot of them. But the storytelling, it's solid storytelling. And again, it just kind of, hopefully the new generation of performers learns from that. And it seems like many of them have, where they haven't gotten addicted to substances,
right?
That could in the end kill them. So as much as sometimes you hear, whether it's Undertaker or other old school dudes like, oh no, they're not tough like they used to be. It's like, well, you had a whole bunch of people who were tough guys who legit were injured and would self-medicate to take care of the problem.
Right.
I'd rather have a bunch of dudes who are sitting there playing PS5 when they go back to their hotel room instead of doing, heavy drugs. I'll take that. I'd like to see all these guys live a long life instead of, you got a poor dude like Bret Hart who has talked about we were supposed to, be friends and grow old together, and I'm the only one that's left. And Brett had to pull out of a signing I think he was supposed to do this week, or an appearance he was supposed to have, because he wasn't feeling well, and there's scant, if any, details. And, if you know any, again, old school wrestler, it's like you make your dates. And for Brett to, listen to a doctor and not go, I mean, that tells you something's going on that's serious enough for him to say, all right, I can't do this. So certainly hope for a quick recovery for the Hitman, that he could go out there and do his thing again.
And I love it, too, because I follow Sergeant Slaughter on Twitter, and every time he goes to one of those signings, he has an old school wrestler in the Cobra Clutch. Like, he's had the Hitman, he's had the Iron Sheik, he's had Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it's just great to just see them and like having these interactions. And it's like, it's so cool to see Slaughter just going around just putting people. I want to be in the Cobra Clutch now. That's what it comes down to. I want to go to one of these things and get my picture taken with Sergeant Slaughter putting me in the Cobra Clutch.
Apparently one person he does not want to see with the Cobra Clutch is one Lacey Evans.
I'm shocked.
So has kind of been somewhat passively against Lacey Evans, looking how she looks and using the Cobra Clutch. But he actually came out this week and specifically said, I wish somebody from WWE would have at least called me and said, hey, do you mind if we use it? Do you mind if we use the same name for the hold? Because he talked about, hey, when Ted DiBiase went to WWF back in the day, and he used the same move, but called it the $1 Million Dream as opposed to the Cobra Clutch. He was like, I was out, and I was doing G.I. Joe at the time. I wasn't in the company. I think Sarge technically is part of the company on like a Legends contract or whatever they're calling it now. So I can somewhat understand where he's coming from, but at the end of the day, I think this is similar to the whole old man Ric Flair getting upset about Becky Lynch being called the man. Honestly, I think it's the same thing. It's like, Sarge, you have not been an active competitor for how long?
Right.
Like at some point, like it expires.
To give context, Sergeant Slaughter was commissioner of WWE when Owen Hart was still alive. I think the last, other than maybe showing up for like a couple of Legends appearances where he did some backstage stuff, I think the only time he ever wrestled was either, I know he wrestled at WrestleMania 17 because he put the Cobra Clutch on the Iron Sheik after the Iron Sheik won the Gimmick Battle Royal. But he might have wrestled one other time against Heath Slater. And that's it. He might have gotten squashed by Umaga or the Great Khali or somebody like that. That's the only thing I could think of. But as a full-time, the only last time he did full-time stuff, he was commissioner in the 90s.
Right. Yeah. So again, I think at some point the time runs out.
Yeah.
I mean, did Flair ask for permission for all the things that he had taken from other people while they were still alive? I bet not. So again, as much as I'm kind of a little bit of going, yeah, maybe they should have called him, but it's she was legit a Marine. If they want to make that part of her gimmick,
yeah,
all right. It's only her 37th gimmick at this point. Something's going to click. I mean, quite honestly, it seemed like she was going in a good direction, and then at one point, what they do, they just randomly took her off TV, and then after that, they had her in the storyline with Flair, and then she got pregnant, which actually was good for all of us, but clearly they had high aspirations for what they were going to do with her.
Right.
And all her momentum, was gone. So I understand why they want to sit there and try to find something to make it work. They did it with Kane until it finally. But I think there's always many chances before they're going to say it's beyond.
And honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that his daughter was very upset about it. And it's not because – and I think it also plays a role in the fact that Lacey Evans really is not very well thought of in the wrestling community with her claims of autism and all that stuff. And I'm not even going to get into it because I don't want to get pissed off right now. So – but again, he's been out of the business long enough. It shouldn't matter. And I get, like, I respect Kevin Owens for reaching out to Steve Austin and asking if he can do the Stone Cold Stunner. So
right. Breaking news: Tim beat the shit out of the Young Bucks in the AEW game.
Has he collapsed through the ring yet?
I'm going to guess no. I'm wondering if the ring exploded yet, or if the thunder kicks of doom and kicked out at 2.
I saw somebody, because I saw a clip of it. Somebody was wrestling a CM Punk and they threw a freaking explosive on a wrestler outside the ring. I'm like, oh yeah, that's yeah. So we know that Cena, if is in this game, he's kicking out at 2 regardless. If it's Kenny Omega, he's popping right back up.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so Forbidden Door, a couple of things of note happened. We had one Bryan Danielson, or what do you call him?
Daniel Bryanson.
All right, Daniel Bryanson ended up breaking his forearm with about 10 minutes or so to go, left with his match against Okada. And this was one of the ones, I think last week, both of us picked Okada because we didn't see them, having Okada lose. But a couple things with this. Considering that they went on after Ospreay and Kenny were, literally those guys pulled out all the stops to have the match of the night. Dave Meltzer clearly thought so, but it made it so specifically these two guys had to kind of start slow and build up the match, similar to what we saw with Rhea Ripley in Charlotte at WrestleMania, where, like, all right, it's going to be a slow build up and then ending will be bonkers. But because with about 10 minutes left, Danielson broke his forearm. Like, he powered through that match. You want to talk about a tough SOB. He powered through the match, ended up tapping Okada out, and the ending probably wasn't exactly what they were hoping for and how it would end. Yep. But, cool that Danielson won. And initially they were talking like, hey, maybe 6 to 8 weeks he'll be out with the broken arm. Now it's sounding like it's going to be more than that, because it sounds like the injury was a bit more substantial than they thought, which means he might not be available when they do All In at Wembley Stadium, which that's a bummer.
I'll tell you right now, does that prove the toughness of my second least favorite stable in all of AEW, the Blackpool Combat Club, where you have Cesaro? Because I to this day, I will never stop talking to it. It'll probably be the last thing I say before I take my last breath, is that Cesaro is definitely the toughest son of a bitch I've ever seen. Just thinking about that match he had where he hit the top of the post and drove his 2 front teeth into his skull and continued to wrestle him. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. That is a tough son of a bitch. That man should have been booked so much better. But between that, Daniel Bryan wrestling with a broken arm for 10 minutes against the greatest wrestler on planet Earth. Obviously, you got the trash bag freaking Jon Moxley who bleeds every time you see him. Obviously, Wheeler Yuta's kind of, but
Yuta's a fine performer. He just kind of as far as character goes.
I like him. No, seriously, I like him as a wrestler. He's a really good wrestler. He just does not belong in the Blackpool Combat Club.
Right. Mike Rainey, yeah, man. Danielson is a freaking beast. I mean, and he talked after the match of how, there's been times where he's kind of tough through injuries and uh, has been proud of the fact that he finished out the match. He's like, yeah, there are a couple times I probably shouldn't have finished the match, and it was good that somebody stopped it. Or a couple times when the match should have been stopped, and he went through it and it didn't end up as well as he hoped.
Right.
But he said he was super psyched about being able to power through this match, and he felt good about how it all turned out. But one, good on Okada for not being afraid to take a clean loss and actually tap out. But Danielson, again, being a freaking beast of a dude and finishing that match with a clean break on his damn arm. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah. Okada is God. I'm sorry. He's God in wrestling. He is the best wrestler. He's the best performer. It's him and then everybody else. I'm sorry. But Bryan Danielson is definitely in that conversation as one of the top stars. He's one of the best wrestlers on planet Earth. He's the best wrestler in AEW, and it's not even close. You can sit there and talk all you want, elite fans. Kenny Omega is not the best wrestler on planet Earth. I like Will Ospreay. He's not the best wrestler on planet Earth. It's Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
But another thing that happened at Forbidden Door that I was completely shocked by is we got Jungle Boy, who lost to Sonata, and surprisingly not at all, and then turned on Hook. I have been a wrestling
on Dynamite as high from that 70s show.
Jay, I have never been less excited for a heel turn in my entire 35 plus years of being a wrestling fan. I do not need to see Jungle Jack Perry on my television. I don't need to see Dylan McKay's kid on my TV. And he cut one of the worst heel promos I've ever heard on Dynamite. I got the hottest chick here. What does that prove? You still have the charisma of a cardboard box. I don't see the appeal. Yes, he's a good wrestler. But he has now been showcased for practically 4 years in AEW because he's an OG. He's been there since the beginning. He was part of Chris Jericho's entrance at Double or Nothing, the first pay-per-view they ever did.
Yeah.
He has not. He's good in the ring. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a fine athlete in the ring.
Yeah.
He has not progressed in any way, shape, or form as a character on the microphone or getting a reaction from the fans. I hate the fact that I can sit here and say that I have zero interest in Luke Perry's kid. Because I respect Luke Perry as a performer, as an actor. But I can't. I don't see it in Jungle Boy. He's not going to get it.
Chris Brown saying he thinks Jack Perry is AEW's answer to Austin Theory. I could see where you're saying that. I can see that.
Austin.
All right. Mike Rainey saying, I didn't think Jack Perry would turn that quickly. I knew it was coming, but didn't think it would be that soon because he was stale as a babyface. Well, I mean, he was stale as a babyface despite the fact that Christian Cage did everything he could to pull it out of him that, like, you should be mad that Christian is saying and doing these things, and your promos were not up to snuff. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who is putting in the extra work. Christian Cage, man, was trying to make Jungle Boy into a star and give him that opportunity to jump up. And he just wasn't up for the task. I mean, he's still young. He could still grow. I mean, it took how long for Roman Reigns to finally figure it out? It took him 8 years. Jungle Boy is still very young, but we'll see what comes of this. Sometimes people just need to become a heel to really do the dastardly things that they want to do. when Dom first turned heel, it was like oh, freaking great. It's like, how much of a 180 have you and I done on Con Dom?
Oh yeah.
He
Dom.
his take into this. What I saw on Wednesday does not make me think that Hyde is going to be a superstar performer anytime soon.
Superstar. I can't see it. And the people that are talking like, oh, they're going to reunite him with Christian and Dino Man. Really? So we're going to take the faction that was a face and fell apart in part because of Jungle Boy and the tensions and everything, and now we're going to put them back together? I can't even stand Dino Man. He's the Luchasaurus is I'm sorry. I've reached the peak with Luchasaurus. He does nothing for me. Christian is still Christian, and Christian is always going to have a very special place in my heart because one of my all-time favorite matches he was a part of. I was very happy when he won the World Heavyweight Championship when he did after Edge retired. I have a lot of appreciation and respect for Christian. The dude can cut a promo. And it took it, and like we talked about with Roman Reigns, like you just mentioned, it took Roman Reigns working with Paul Heyman to get better on the microphone. The difference is that he had a personality. He had a presence about him, and he was actually pretty solid in the ring. It's just he couldn't cut a promo to save his life. And I don't see Paul Heyman walking through that door to save the Jungle Boy either.
But they do have Chris Hero walking through that door. I tweeted his coach for AEW, whether or not this is a full-time thing, but he was definitely at Forbidden Door. I hear that they doubled the catering budget for that night, specifically because of that. But that's neither here nor there.
Oh, no. That's what catering says when Cassius Ohno walks in. That's how they got his nickname, Cassius Ohno, because Chris Hero walked into catering the first time, and the caterer's like, oh, no. Hey, pal, I got a name for that.
All right. Tim says he likes the idea of Jack Perry being a heel. Mike Rainey said if Regal hadn't left, Jack Perry should have been paired with him. But the fact that Christian couldn't get the most out of him says a lot about Perry.
Yep.
And part of it just could be whether it's immaturity or just he sometimes it takes a little while and then all of a sudden it clicks and you're like, where was this the whole time? But sometimes it builds up a little, and then one day your brain has that epiphany. I hope he has that epiphany someday, but at this moment, he does not look like he's going to get there.
I have a question. How does one's brain get an epiphany when they are sans a brain?
I think there are different means in which the epiphany happens.
Do I say wait before it happens?
I think that's usually it. That's usually it.
And really quickly.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, really quickly, because it was mentioned that Austin Theory is the equivalent of the Jungle Boy for WWE. Austin Theory is yes, I agree. Austin Theory is a great in-ring performer. He gets a reaction from the fans. He's got a personality. We might not like his personality, but he's got a personality, and he can handle himself on the microphone. On a basis of like hatred, yes, I would say they're probably on par with each other. I can't stand Jungle Boy more, just as much as Austin Theory, but I actually think that Austin Theory is talented. I just can't stand his face. I feel like Rob Riggle and freaking Step Brothers. Austin Theory, you get a reaction from the fans. You're a hell of a performer in the ring. You got a very bright future here. I don't know what it is, but I just want to deal one of these right into your suck hole. You got to do me a favor. You got to rearrange your face, or I'm going to have to rearrange it for you. That's my biggest thing. Like, at least with Theory, there's a reason that there's hatred for him because he's just the way that he was presented before when he first came up to the main roster, the fact that he just looks like the Fiend's mask if you stretch it out and make it the World Heavyweight Champion Fiend mask title. He's kind of a douche. He came up in the Me Too movement or whatever it was. There's reasons that they don't like him. I think the reasons that people don't like Jack Perry are completely different. He just comes off as a self-centered prick who doesn't have the personality of of anything. He's just a shithead. But
right.
I'm sorry, I had to mention that.
So another thing from Forbidden Door is Adam Cole, baby, who was supposed to have a match, but had the match canceled. Adam Cole was apparently ready, willing, and able to go if wanted, but he was exhibiting flu-like symptoms and on the side of precaution, which I think I applaud Tony Khan here. Adam Cole's been through plenty, specifically starting from last year's Forbidden Door. No need to have somebody with flu-like symptoms that, maybe is just a little off and ends up taking the wrong knock in the head.
But that's okay, Jay, because of the fact that Adam Cole wasn't able to participate. Filthy Tom Lawler had an opponent. I mean, it wasn't Adam Cole or anybody of the magnitude of Adam Cole. You could have given him just about anybody. Why you give him King Serpentico, who got to 100 losses before Jon Moxley got to 100 wins? Like, that's comparable. Powerhouse Hobbs had nothing better to do. Was he shooting a QTV moment with the worst wrestler in the history of AEW, QT Marshall? But Tom Lawler, who is somebody who can bring eyeballs to the television. Filthy Tom Lawler, who used to wrestle in MMA, or used to fight in MMA, who wrestles in New Japan, is a name, has recognition. And you put him in the match, you put him in the show before the pre-show. Against King Serpentico. This Tony Khan really have no idea what the fuck he's doing or what?
To an extent, he knows what he's doing, but we don't know everything that was going on behind the scenes. We don't know if Power Hobbs was even in, the area to have a match. We don't know. But I would imagine that there was somebody, a bigger name recognition that they could have put in that match to do something. They could have, I'm sure Fish was there. They could have had the Fish Man.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Tim saying too much Coke for Tony Khan. That is possible.
Oh, that's very possible.
Yeah. All right. I'm saying completely clueless when it comes to booking a show. Between him and Dixie Carter, I can't decide who's worse. Okay.
When they did that 6-person intergender tag match with Mark Briscoe, Papa Briscoe, and Ref Aubrey against Jay Lethal. Oh, God, I was so thrown off by Ref Aubrey or whatever the hell her name is. Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett. Is that some Dixie Carter shit right there?
It feels like it. Still not in the league of one of my least favorite segments of wrestling history is when Jeff Jarrett was trying to show off his MMA moves and do a MMA class in an Impact Wrestling ring. You ever want to watch something that's really shit? Give yourself 5 minutes of watching that. And Jarrett was similar to Sting, Paul Heyman, and Jim Ross, doing all he could to really showcase this and lift it up beyond to what it was. And he failed at every level, just like Sting, Paul Heyman, and Jim Ross did at Clash 13 with the magic tricks.
Paul Heyman did everything in his power to make sure that was not the worst wrestling show in the history of mankind. And now that you mentioned that with the Jeff Jarrett thing, I really have to think about what is the worst thing I've ever seen in wrestling history. Or at least the 35 years that I've been watching.
Right. The list is long and illustrious.
Oh, goodness. I mean, the Old Day segment comes to mind.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Katie Vick clearly is high up there on the list. But after a while, it becomes so it's so bad that it becomes like iconic. Where it's like, you did that?
Another one that always comes to mind, and it wasn't as bad, was when I think it was Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley were feuding, and they busted out Bobby Lashley's sisters.
Oh.
And I never understood, and that was when Bobby Lashley was a face when he first came back. And it's like, this dude's coming out here and shitting on your sisters, and you're coming out with this big beaming smile. And come on, man. That's just as bad as Jeff Hardy dancing to the ring as Matt Hardy's getting his ass kicked by a bunch of dudes.
So Chris Brown saying that needs to be a top 10 list. So I think the thing for me now would be, if I was putting together a list like that, it would need to be things that if I tried to show a non-wrestling fan, I would be completely embarrassed to be a wrestling fan to show them.
Top 10 wrestling moments to not show casual fans.
Or people who have never seen it. And that was part of Undertaker and Foley's conversation, where they would have people who were fans of pro wrestling show the Hell in the Cell match to non-fans or people who had never watched, just to gauge the reaction. And there are a lot of, if you go on YouTube, there are actually a lot of clips out there of people recording people watching that Hell in the Cell match, and when they see him go off the cage, they see the tax, when they see all that stuff, they're like, and he and Taker are both kind of like, you know what? Even if those folks didn't become professional wrestling fans after, he was like, they got a level of respect for the business they didn't have before.
If I've had it asked to me a couple times, the first match that always comes to mind, at least years ago, was TLC 2 from WrestleMania 17.
Yeah.
If I'm going to tell a non-wrestling fan any match, hey, I want to get into wrestling, what's a match all time that you think I should? Oh yeah, Hell in a Cell or TLC 2, WrestleMania 17, Dudley's, Edge and Christian, and the Hardy Boys. And the fact that there was only maybe a handful of botches in a match of that magnitude, but the moments were incredible. Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off of the freaking ladder when Hardy was hanging off the ring where the titles were held. The Matt Hardy and Bubba Ray Dudley going through the tables outside of the ring. I mean, even Rhino getting involved and Lita getting involved. I mean, some of those bumps were just incredible. I mean, Christian fell off the ladder outside of the ring, and I'm like, that is a nasty bump.
Yeah.
But that's the match I would always say.
All right, Chris Brown saying he believes anything from the Kiss My Ass Club should be part of that list.
We'll figure that out when we get there.
I'd say that. I'd say so. All right. So, also speaking of injury, we've been wondering after his drafting to SmackDown why one Grayson Waller has not had a match. Apparently, he broke his fibula during his match with Carmelo Hayes, and he's like, I don't really have a timeline I could give you for when I'm going to be back in action, but clearly for SmackDown, we did see him at least have a segment. They had the Grayson Waller effect, which led to all the stuff with LA Knight and Logan Paul and Butch, and ended up, where we had a match, playa. So while I've got that, the squirrel brain is going strong right now. During the Dark Side of the Ring episode with JYD, they specifically did have a clip of Teddy Long setting up a match with The Undertaker.
That was the best. I love seeing Teddy in that. Between Teddy Long and Tony Atlas both being in that, it was fantastic.
Yeah, lots really good stuff. Lots of interesting stories. But yeah, seeing that just made me freaking smile.
Yeah, same. I kind of chuckled when I saw him when they added that clip to it. And I'll tell you, and since you mentioned Grayson Waller, that's another dude I've done a complete 180 on. I couldn't stand him. I mean, like, me as a kid hating Ted DiBiase heat I had with Grayson Waller. Man, that dude is starting to grow on me. The Australian accent's still a little much because it's very, very thick, and it's I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but he could work and he could talk, and
yeah, you to hate him like. And as far as booking and what they did, the thing with him and Braun Breaker that they did, like when they had the like brawl in the gym, just because you had never really seen a lot of that sort of thing, you know, it really helped take it to the next level. And all the crap talking that he did, like I was like, going, okay,
It's a lot better than the most dangerous place on planet Earth, which is the NXT Performance Center parking lot.
Yes.
Or the Full Sail parking lot, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, another thing, since we were talking about updates with people, it was announced this week, in fact, it was announced yesterday, that one Carlito is officially on his way back to WWE. He should be debuting, I want to say, 3 weeks from yesterday or 2 weeks from yesterday. It's in July, in a couple weeks.
Sure.
So,
and we talked about it possibly being, you know, the Friday after Money in the Bank. But if it's a couple of weeks after, then then so be it. Whether or not that allows him to get in the mix for SummerSlam, like in a big way, if he ends up part of the LWO and whatever storyline they've got going forward, you know, they keep on talking how LWO merchandise is amongst the top selling. I think they said specifically last night it is the top selling, but we all know that the Yasher is going to pass it this weekend.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Chris Brown is saying July 7th, so that would be next Friday.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he is debuting the Saturday, or the Friday after Money in the Bank.
So there's that.
That's awesome. I can't wait. So is it out of the realm of possibility we could possibly see him tonight then?
I don't think it is out of the realm of possibility. I mean, we got Santos Escobar in the Money in the Bank match. I think there's going to be some shenanigans in that match, and we'll see what goes on going forward with the LWO. Clearly, you know, if you're selling merchandise, they're going to keep pushing you. Yep. And anytime you have the opportunity to make new stars, let's make it happen. If you need, you know, Carlito and Rey Mysterio to help usher in some of these younger stars, I'm all for it. Take the Legado del Fantasma dudes and make them into something more.
I agree. And I'm a huge fan of Zelina Vega. She was such a great call to add to that faction. Yeah.
And you know, she had that match in Puerto Rico and certainly, like, had the crowd behind her, but, you know, WWE made the absolute right call having, you know, Rhea in that match and went in the way she did, which was, you know, really just kind of putting her thumb on Zelina, like, on, you don't deserve to be in my ring. I'm much better than you. And having Zelina get a couple of, you know, near falls and like, oh, all right, you know, heel champion got a little cocky and almost cost her. But, you know, if they ended up going with Zelina winning this women's Money in the Bank match, I'm not going to be, like, upset by that.
She's one of two people I want to see win, and she's my dark horse to win, if that's even possible for her to be the dark horse. But she's my dark horse to win tonight.
So one more AEW note I definitely want to get on. AEW Grand Slam is coming back September 20th to Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. You know, this was where they had Bryan Danielson make his debut for AEW a couple years ago, and they sold a ton of tickets. Clearly, New York is a good market for them, and they keep on, doing the Grand Slam. So, Northeast is always in New England area has always been a hotbed for pro wrestling, and a lot of it has to do with WWF, and people just love wrestling up there.
Yep.
And one of the places actually AEW Collision's going is Hartford. They're going to the mall.
Wow.
Like when I saw that they were going to the XL Center, I was like, I think they'd be better off in one of the smaller arenas. Do they still have the arena in Bridgeport where it holds like 6,000 or 7,000? I think that would be a better idea for AEW. But I think they think that they have a large audience that loves AEW in Hartford. I'm guessing they're thinking that from television ratings, and or they sell a lot of merchandise there. So they're like, oh no, let's do the big building. And that's July 29th. That's not far away. And trying to sell that many tickets to the X, I guess we'll see.
They would have been better off going to the casino.
Right.
Because at least that way you could have gotten the degenerates that had nothing better to do after they've lost their shit at the freaking blackjack table.
Yeah. Mike Rainey putting in the chat saying that there are rumors floating around that maybe Zelina might be replaced in the Money in the Bank match with, I want you to take a guess.
Charlotte Flair.
Yeah. What level of tism will you be if that happens?
Jay, I only have 2 televisions in this house, so if I break one, I can't break the other one.
You better watch out when you're cleaning around those televisions, because things happen. Cleaning while watching Great Gatsby with Leo, you just never know what'll happen. All right, Tim's saying he will be at AEW in Hartford, and he says he's going with WWE signs.
I would get if I ever went to an AEW show, I'd probably get thrown out. It would be the reaction I would get would be worse than when you and I went to Hampton Roads Championship Wrestling, and I got all 42 people in the crowd to turn against us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second fastest I've ever ran to my car in my entire life.
Yeah. So one of the competitors for the Money in the Bank match, one LA Knight.
Yeah.
About his wrestling career. Yeah. And says he actually wishes that he had signed with WWE sooner. Apparently there was an offer on the table, but the offer that was made monetarily was not as big as what he was offered from Impact Wrestling. He said, I have nothing against my time in Impact. It was really good, but he was like, I made good money and they offered me more money than WWE, but there was a ceiling to that money, and it was far lower than my earning potential in WWE. And I think he just feels like if he had come to the company a couple years earlier, maybe some of the he's too old to get this push may have been disregarded. It's like, oh, nah, he upper 30s, but he could go and he gets the crowd behind him. But LA Knight was like, yeah, I probably should have come here sooner.
Well, apparently he was in the down in either NXT or
in 2012, I think.
Yeah, and he got released from his contract, I guess, for attitude issues or something like that. I think I heard.
But I think I want to say it would have probably been 2017. I think he had an opportunity to come back because he signed with Impact. I think it was 2015, And usually with contracts, they'll end up being like, 2-year deals and then 2-year deals. So it sounds like WWE reached out to him, and just because the money wasn't the same, he just didn't see that, like, oh, well, I could escalate in WWE and end up making far more. But I'm glad he's where he's at now, and the crowd is going to be ballistic for him tonight. And hopefully that kind of pause in his WWE career doesn't prevent him from getting to where he wants to be.
Diamond Dallas Page won the World Heavyweight Championship at 43 years of age. That was the first time he held the World Heavyweight Championship at 43. Bobby Lashley was 45.
Yeah, if you don't count the ECW Heavyweight Championship.
No, we don't count the ECW. That's not a... The ECW, what was it? The WWECW Championship does not count.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize this, but Ezekiel Jackson was the last ever ECW World Champion.
Yeah, I think, was it Christian that he beat on the last show?
He did.
I think it was. I always enjoyed, actually, I didn't enjoy the fact that they used the ECW brand, because it was clearly like
developmental,
just to make a buck off of the momentum gotten from like One Night Stand. It wasn't ECW, but as a show, it was like a bunch of the young guys and girls getting a 1-hour show to wrestle in front of a big crowd, because they would tape it before they would tape Raw, because that's when Raw was only 2 hours. But they would, have a big crowd that they could wrestle in front of. And you got to see guys like Sheamus come up and make their name
Kofi
there.
Kingston.
Go through, but it was a decent little show.
Yeah.
As far like, if you take the ECW name off of it, as far as like going, oh yeah, it wasn't Extreme. It was a wrestling show.
If it was NXT back then, I think it would have lasted and still probably be going today. Because like you said, Sheamus was there. Kofi Kingston got his break there. That's where Jack Swagger got his big spot was there. And, it was a fun show. It's just it didn't have the same appeal to it because they were like, this is ECW. No, the fuck it's not.
The only thing that made it ECW is they kept Tommy Dreamer around.
Yeah.
He was the link.
And Matt Hardy, even though Matt Hardy was really ECW. He's just Extreme.
Right.
Oh, yeah!
Slam a tornado! Yeah!
I got a couple of really quick AEW notes.
Yeah, man.
Keith Lee this week came back, shaved beard, dyed his hair black again. He no longer looks like Uncle Phil's brother. I don't know what the hell they're doing with him, so I needed to mention that because I'm like, what is going on? Like, you were embracing the gray and being okay with how you looked, and then you come back and you look like you did when you were in WWE. I don't get that. And something that happened, I should have mentioned it on last week's show because it actually happened a little farther back, but Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, Johnny Impact, Johnny Elite, Johnny whatever you want to call him, debuted after signing with AEW, after saying and doing in interviews that I didn't like a lot of the stuff we did in WWE, but if they ever called me, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Debuted and is now part of QTV. He is now going to be known as Johnny TV. Why? Why continue to subject people to this horrible thing that you've gotten with QTV? I can't stand it, and adding him to it brings nothing to the table. Again, why I question what the hell Tony Khan is doing.
Yeah.
Cousin Jay, I just realized we haven't talked about the biggest thing that happened in wrestling this week.
What's that, brainless one?
We got the return of the Lone Wolf on NXT television.
Yeah.
They were teasing it, and I was waiting for it. I know they gave him his original entrance that he had when he was first down in NXT and when he first got called up before he got the I Bring the Darkness song.
Yeah.
But Lone Wolf, Baron Corbin is back. And not only did we get the Lone Wolf, that was the greatest match that Baron Corbin has ever been a part of. I was thoroughly entertained by Baron Corbin.
Baron Corbin, as an in-ring performer, has always, gotten the job done. He really has. Like, there isn't anything overly embarrassing about what he does. It's always kind of been back and forth with the mic stuff.
Yep.
He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, but for a long time, it's like you could tell, like, he's reciting lines.
Yeah.
And it was painful listening to him cut promos. Then there was a time where it's like, okay, he's starting to get better at it. It's not like the worst thing. I always come back to the pandemic ruined his momentum. When he was king, like, can you imagine the reaction that dude would have got from being the ultimate douche?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, China.
But, he was developing that momentum. He had just finished his feud with Reigns and didn't look terrible,
No.
At the end of that. And then, he just got lost during the Thunderdome era. And clearly, I mean, they were trying a whole bunch of stuff with him, bringing JBL in, making him an Olive Garden waiter, making him GM, then trying to make him Happy Corbin, and nothing has really stuck, in the last 3.5 years. So why not, hey, if you think you've got something in him, try to rehabilitate him one more time. And it's done wonders for Finn Balor. Finn Balor talked about how he actually loves being a heel, embraces it, and the only reason why he becomes a face is because he's asked to do it. Although, like, I don't know, still me with Finn Balor, it's like, he looks like too nice of a dude for me to take him serious as a heel. All that being said, Corbin clearly works very good as a heel when he's doing it full tilt and not what they've been doing with him.
Right.
So hopefully this is the chance to create a new, give him some time down in NXT, and then maybe he'll get another shot, and maybe he'll grab the brass ring, pal.
I'm happy for him. I've started to develop an appreciation for Baron Corbin because at the end of the day, I never thought he was a bad worker in the ring. I still remember the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal he won a few years back at WrestleMania, and I want to say it was Braun Strowman that he freaking clotheslined over the top rope like he was clotheslining freaking Rey Mysterio.
Right.
I was like, holy shit, that was an impressive. And I always, there's stuff like that when you have like an impressive elimination in like a Battle Royal or Royal Rumble. Like I always talk about when Cesaro won the first one at WrestleMania 30 and he picked up the Big Show and dropped him like a sack of potatoes. And I'm like, you don't just do that to the Big Show.
Right.
He picked him up and carried him to the, I'm like, oh my, stuff like that. And,
I hear they weighed him at the end of that match, and he weighed 705 pounds. That Cesaro slammed him over the top rope. That's straight from Hulk Hogan's mouth.
At the Superdome, brother. Oh, WrestleMania 30, you will forever, ever, ever be a treasure, even if the Undertaker's streak ended that night.
Yeah. Kevin Dunn searching the audience got even greater because he got that one dude.
I will say this: the Undertaker's streak ending at WrestleMania 30 wasn't as egregious as Chris Jericho losing to Fandango at 29.
Curtis the Cat Hughes just did a run-in, Clash 13. Yep.
Oh, so is that
expect him to show up for 45 minutes of a 2-hour show?
Is that before or after primetime Brian Lee stood in the corner and watched the Z-Man miss a crossbody?
That spot will never not be funny.
And you're damn right. That's the only thing I've watched more than the actual pay-per-view itself or the show itself was that crossbody. Because I even just randomly I go onto Peacock and I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just watch primetime Brian Lee frickin' poor the Z-Man, Tom Zink, hanging as he's flying and doing the crossbody off the top rope. So primetime Brian Lee's waiting for the green light to turn a different color, like the people who sit at the green lights wait for it to turn a different color when you're driving and trying to bring an order to somebody's house.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Brainless One, you got anything else, or do you want to get into Money in the Bank predictions here?
Well, we could get into Money in the Bank predictions, but I have a very, very special top 10 list for this week.
Okay.
And because it is Money in the Bank, and I know I have a lot of fun with this, but sometimes maybe taking it a little serious is always a good thing too. So for this week, even though I can't wait for next week's list, I'm going to have a lot of fun with next week's list. I guarantee Class 13 makes at least one appearance on that list next week. But this week, on the top 10 list, we have the top 10 cash-ins of the Money in the Bank all time, according to the brain of the Brainless One. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but you know what? This is my list. This is how it goes. Okay? Yeah? All right. So the top 10 cash-ins of all time. Number 10, Baron Corbin failing his cash-in on John Cena. Number 9, as much as I really didn't like this, but it made a lot of sense, and what it led to down the road, Randy Orton cashing in on Daniel Bryan. Number 8, I don't even need to explain myself on this one. Number 8, Alexa Bliss cashing in on Nia Jax. Number 7, Liv Morgan cashing in on Ronda Rousey. Only because of the fact that Michael Cole losing his mind with Pat McAfee when she was about to cash in was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, and I was so happy for Liv Morgan. So she gets the 7th spot. Number 6, if I have to explain myself on this one, I really shouldn't have to. The Miz cashing in on Randy Orton. I love me some Miz, so you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Number 5, and I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for this one. Number 5, Dolph Ziggler cashing in on Alberto Del Rio.
You know me. It's number 1.
If he had a little bit more of a substantial run instead of them not, being certain of him continuing on because of his concussions, it probably would have been higher on this list. And such good shit, pal. But you also know how I think. But it was still that pop the night after WrestleMania when he cashed in on Del Rio was incredible.
Yeah.
Number 4, CM Punk cashing in on Edge. Only because storyline-wise, WWE had drafted both the World Heavyweight and the WWE Championship to SmackDown. Edge shows up on Raw, says what he says, taunts the fans. Batista comes out, who just got drafted to Raw, beats the shit out of Edge, and then CM Punk cashes in the Money in the Bank to give Raw their champion. the substantiation of the cash-in for CM Punk made it that much better. Plus, it was CM Punk, and I was a huge CM Punk fan.
Yeah.
Number 3, Edge cashing in on John Cena. You got to have the first ever cash-in, and that was a memorable one.
John Cena.
Number 2, and I know I'm going to get some slack for this one. Number 2, Seth Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania 31 in the main event on Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
Do you care to take a guess of where I have as number 1?
Sheamus.
It's a shameful thing, lobster head, a careless man who can wind. Of course it's Sheamus. How is it not Sheamus? He beat.
I'm glad Ian Sandow isn't on the list.
I couldn't do. I was so pissed when Sandow lost. So pissed.
He beat the hell out of John Cena before the match started, and didn't John Cena have one arm?
Yeah.
And John Cena still won.
I love him. Still
miscarriage.
His personalized briefcase is still my favorite of all the briefcases that they've ever brought in. Close second is Brock Lesnar with the boombox. But yeah, Sheamus
for indulgence.
Sheamus broke kicking and beating Roman Reigns as the confetti is hitting the ring and the ringside area is still one of my favorite things. And obviously, I'm going to pick my favorite wrestler as numero uno.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, now we got some predictions to make. Now that the juices have started to titillate, we can get some Money in the Bank predictions.
I'm going to make a prediction that maximum male models will not appear.
Sad. Oh, you telling me I'm not going to be able to see a dead inside Mansoor as he's posing in in a Halloween costume or a tennis attire or in a bowling shirt or something?
Probably not. Very sad.
All right. So let's start off with the match that I am looking forward to the least. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And this is not anything against Liv Morgan or Shayna Baszler. I just don't need to see Raquel Rodriguez or Ronda Rousey on my television. Who do you got?
As much as I think WWE doesn't mind hot potatoing this title, I don't think this is the moment that the hot potato is going to switch. I think that somehow, some way, Ronda and Shayna are going to leave Money in the Bank with the titles. And it comes down to the fact that SummerSlam is 5 weeks away. And love her or hate her, Ronda Rousey has still got some, star power beyond what Raquel and Liv could bring to the table. So just because it's Ronda Rousey and they're going into the biggest show of the summer, I'm gonna go with them. And yeah.
Has anybody had a greater fall from grace from where they were to where they are now than Ronda Rousey in professional wrestling? How she went from being the baddest woman on the planet to being one half of the champions that is the least cared about champions in all of professional wrestling. I care more about the Ring of Honor Pure Championship more than I care about the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. And I couldn't even tell you who the Ring of Honor Pure Champion is. I think it's Shibata Bread. But I agree, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler are winning this match.
All right, it looks like a sweep, even with Mike Rainey and Chris Brown and Tim. Tim says Ronda has X-Pac heat at this point. Don't give a shit about back pose. Shayna needs to be a badass again, and Liv deserves so much better. But Ben said there's going to be a major upset tonight in today's card, and this might be that match. That's what Chris said. That's what Chris Brown said in the second half.
Telling you right now, I'm going to shock everyone because not only am I going to predict the upset, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah? How about the Bray versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship?
If they really wanted to shock us, I think this would be the match to do it. This isn't the time to do it, in my view. If they really want to rewrite the record books, we need Gunther to have the title for another couple months. I do not foresee Matt Riddle winning this. Could be wrong, but I'm going to go with Gunther. Gunther has a hell of a lot of momentum right now, and let's keep that freaking momentum going and not, heading into SummerSlam. It's like Matt Riddle having a SummerSlam match with the Intercontinental title against who that you're going to care about. Gunther, because people are like going, yeah, he's had the title for a long time. Let's see somebody kick the crap out of him and take that title. They can figure something out for that.
It's Gunther, and I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Has there been anybody who was called up from NXT who has been better presented and better booked than Gunther?
I mean, I think you could possibly make a case for somebody like Nakamura. I mean, he won a Royal Rumble and had high-profile matches at WrestleMania. But all in all, Nakamura's been between mid-card and upper mid-card. Gunther still has time. So I would say if you're talking about, the first, 2 years on the main roster, probably not. Probably not. I'll say Gunther was probably best booked.
He hasn't been pinned since.
Booking too. Clearly, Rollins and Reigns.
That's.
Booked.
I mean, that was just. There was the right place at the right time, and there was no way that they weren't gonna. But I just think, from somebody just coming up as themselves, as like a single person, I think it's him. The only person I could think of off the top of my head is Captain Cupcake.
Right.
Because he beat John Cena in his first night on the main roster. And he's a Grand Slam champion, if I'm not mistaken.
And Sami Zayn's clearly done well. But again, if you're talking about that initial boost up in the company, yeah. You're talking long term. You're talking like long term. There's a lot of there's questions you could.
Yeah.
There are people you can put a case for, but Gunther's been booked exceptionally well. Thank you, Vince McMahon, for getting yourself fired for 6 months.
Yes. If I heard what is true, poor Walter. I no longer look like my brother, Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The apparent, I don't know how this is, main event, Cody Rhodes versus Con Dom.
I don't see how they can put this on last, quite honestly. Like, it feels like the Civil War should be the main event here.
There's two matches. If it's not the Roman and Solo versus the Usos, it has to be the men's Money in the Bank. Those are the only two matches that can main event tonight.
But Cody and Con Dom, this is one of those matches where there are a lot of ways they could get this to go. And my feeling is that Con Dom is going to have some sort of outside interference that allows him to be victorious here. Whether it's just Rhea or it's a whole cavalcade of the Spooky Pals, or if this is a
Spooky Pals.
JD McDonough is part of the Spooky Pals. Where he comes out of nowhere, and they're in the UK, so JD McDonough built up a significant following there. So I think what I'll say is we're going to get JD McDonough debuting as a Spooky Pal.
So are you going with Cody or are you going with Con Dom?
I'm going with Con Dom with the help JD McDonough and or Rhea. All right, so we've got Tim saying Dom wins, but Brock interferes.
That's the
or
one.
Randy Orton RKO's Cody.
If Randy Orton is going to come out and get involved in any wrestling match today, he's costing Riddle the Intercontinental Championship. But I 100% agree, because it's to the point that not only am I certain of this, Dom beating Cody today is my stone cold lead pipe lock. Dom wins, hockey assist to Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
And we do see Randy Orton in the Riddle versus Gunther match at some point. Whether it's in the match or after the match, Randy Orton comes out and RKO's Matt Riddle tonight.
Okay.
World Heavyweight Championship. Seth Franklin Rollins versus the Spooky Pals leader, or co-leader, Finn Balor. Do I have a coin? Do I have a coin? Shit. No, I do not. I have to pick a winner. Fuck.
As much as I want Seth Rollins to have a long reign that establishes some credibility for this title, I have a feeling that Finn Balor is winning tonight. And I think some of this plays back to the Universal Championship match that they had all those years ago.
7 years.
You know, Seth felt terrible about that. You had Finn Balor, who felt like on the ascent, got taken out for months upon months, and he's had a fine run since then, since he got back, but never had his true chance at being the heavyweight champion and seeing what he could do with it.
Right.
WWE's very high on what they've done now with the Spooky Pals.
Yeah, I'm fully vested. They went from being a joke for me to being like a legitimate stable. I enjoy the Spooky Pals now, and it's because of Triple H.
And so I think Triple H also probably feels a little bit of like we need to give this dude an opportunity to run with this title. We have a lot of belief in this group. So let's make this happen. I'm going to go Finn Balor. I can understand, though, if they keep the title on Rollins, but I have a feeling Finn wins it. And maybe could be wrong. Maybe this is where McDonough makes his debut.
I was thinking that, too. And I'll tell you right now, I really thought that the first time you and I were going to differentiate on a prediction was going to be at one of the two Money in the Bank matches. The fact that we're at the world title match and we differentiate, I think it's Seth Rollins. And it's not because I don't think Finn can win it. If they want to prolong this, they could have another match at SummerSlam where they had their match for the first time 7 years ago and then have Finn drop the title, or Seth drop the title to Finn there. I think that Seth Rollins ends up winning this. That promo or that video package that they shot for Finn on Monday was A++. That was fantastic. I loved that. That actually had me. That's why, as prepared as I usually am for this podcast, I did not have a clear cut. And when I was even running this morning, I was trying to think. I'm like, is it going to be Seth or is it going to be Finn? Is it going to be Seth or is it going to be Finn? Because I could go either way, but I'm going to go with Seth Rollins here.
All right, Chris Brown saying, and then Priest cashes in on Balor, pins him, and ejects Balor from Judgment Day like they did with Edge last year.
I would
soon.
The reason I don't think that's going to happen is that means that Finn Balor's two main championship reigns in WWE's main roster lasted less than 24 hours combined.
Right.
And that's just a slap in the face. As storyline wise, yes, it would make sense. I think that if Finn wins and Priest wins the briefcase, you add that extra element to the friction of the faction. But having it's like, oh, do I trust this guy? He's got the briefcase. I'm the world champion. He's supposed to be my friend, but there's already been tension. But Yeah, I got Seth Rollins winning. I wouldn't be surprised if JD McDonough makes an appearance in that match either.
Right.
What should be the main event, and I hopefully will end up being the main event, Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa versus, as the GOAT Bubba Ray Dudley said, the greatest tag team in WWE history, the Usos.
Yeah.
Bubba Ray Dudley.
You think I heard somebody telling me that the betting line is on the Usos for this.
Wow.
They teased last night that the Usos would pin Roman Reigns for the first time in 3 years.
First person to do it since Baron Corbin.
Booking 101 tells me that's bullcrap. The fact that Roman Reigns and Solo did not win the tag team championships last month tells me I don't think that the only way booking wise I think it would make sense for Roman and Solo to lose is if they want Roman to be on his own, because then he'll be like, oh, see, my family's bringing me down. I've been trying to lift them up, but they're bringing me down. I can't keep taking losses, so I guess I got to do it on my own. I think Roman and Solo win this match.
Wow, I think that's another one we're differentiating on. I got the Usos. And I'll tell you right now, they started teasing it last night about there being friction between Roman and Solo when the Usos said that there was a tribal chief and it's not them, it's their brother. And Roman laughed his ass off and Solo looked at him. He was pissed. And it was funny, too, because like an hour before Smackdown last night, I asked Nicole, and I was like, when are they going to start teasing the friction between Roman and Solo? And they did it last night, and I was like, so when is the Brinks truck gonna break down in front of my house?
For me, my favorite part of last night was how loudly the crowd was chanting for Solo. Like, that crowd was bonkers. That's what came through on TV. I could only imagine what it was like in the arena last night for that. Does that end up being Solo's moment similar to what they did with Batista back in the day, where they heard the crowd, they wanted Randy Orton to be the one that became the thing out of Evolution, but the crowd reaction so much to Batista that they changed their mind on what they were going to do. Instead of getting Jey Uso versus Roman at SummerSlam, would we get Solo versus Roman instead? Just based off that reaction, do they call an audible and do something different? I don't know, but the reaction that Solo got last night, and the thing that's great about Solo, he doesn't need to say anything or do anything. Like the crowd, like he had the crowd eating out of his hands just by, and I'm sure when he heard his name being called by the crowd, like on the inside, he probably had this gigantic smile. Yeah. But he sat there and did such a good job of maintaining like my badass looking straight ahead face. My cousin is degrading my contributions here.
He just keeps getting better and better each and every week. His in-ring ability's been pretty spot on since he debuted in NXT a little over a year ago. Man, he was the right call to add to the Bloodline storyline.
And it was in England.
Yep. Yes, it was. It would come full circle. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Usos. I think, call me crazy, I think Roman eats the pin.
Okay. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler.
All right. Women's Money in the Bank match. Io Sky, Zelina Vega, Karen Bailey, Becky Lynch, the GOAT Trish Stratus, and Zoe Stark.
My pick is so out on a limb here. So out on a limb. Zoe Stark. Because my feeling is that Trish and Becky are going to take each other out, setting up for SummerSlam to have another match. And as much as, if Charlotte ends up in the match, Charlotte's going to win. I'll say that. But I'm going with Zoe Stark because part of the thing of them pairing her with Trish is to elevate. If you want to talk about something that would be a thing people would not expect, Zoe Stark would be completely unexpected, but the fact that she's paired with Trish and would get that briefcase, I think could help bring her up several notches. Again, it all goes out the window if somehow, some way Charlotte Flair ends up in this match. Charlotte will win this match if she's in it.
Well, I was going to ask you who your dark horse is, but you just picked the longest shot on the board. I swear, are we at the track, Jay? I mean, seriously, you picked the longest shot on the board. You probably put $2 across the board on him, too, or her, too. And then
it wouldn't be a dark horse. Like, my second pick would be Karen Bailey.
Wow. Because I'm picking Io Sky.
I wouldn't be upset with that. I mean, she had that banger of a match. Go ahead.
I want to see her and Asuka. That at the end of the day, that's all I care about. As a wrestling fan, that's what I want to see. Io Sky and Asuka would be one of the greatest women's matches we have ever seen. And if they give us that at SummerSlam and it's because of the briefcase, I am on board with it. My dark horse is Zelina Vega, though.
Okay.
Really quickly, though, Trish Stratus is the second favorite to win this match.
Yeah. All right. So Chris Brown and Tim both talking about Io Sky winning. And then Mike Rainey says Charlotte ends up in the match and wins.
Where did we hear this Charlotte thing from? I know Mike Rainey mentioned it, but where did...
Who mentioned it? I don't know. He just said he saw rumors, heard rumors. Charlotte was going to...
If they do... I hope not. All right, and now it's time for the men's Money in the Bank match. We have a Ricochet. We have a Shinsuke Nakamura. Pete Butch Dunne. Damian Priest. Santos Escobar. Logan Paul. And obviously, of course, L.A. Knight. Yeah!
Yeah!
Should I just circle his name now, knowing that we both picked it instead of putting our one letter on top of one for you and one letter on top of one for me? Should I just circle his name? Is he going to win it? Are they finally going to do the right thing?
My heart wants LA Knight badly to win this thing. If what I read this week is to be believed, I don't care how much Triple H pushes the old dastardly MFer. If he wants Logan Paul to win, Logan Paul is going to win. All that being said, I'm going to stick with LA Knight as my pick because, damn it, he deserves it.
Yeah? I got to go with Logan Paul. Or not Logan Paul. I'm sorry. I have to go with LA Knight. I cannot bring myself to pick Logan Paul for anything. I just can't. I can't stand that dude. He's a fucking piece of shit. His brother reminds me too much of. I'm almost positive that Jake Paul is a freaking Cowboys fan. Because the only thing that's missing is the white and blue Nikes with the jean shorts, with the Cowboys shirt on, wearing a backwards Yankees hat, talking about this is our year. That's what Jake Paul looks like. Jake Paul looks like a Cowboys fan. And I can't stand either one of them. And if I was locked in a room, and this just gets me knocked off of Facebook, so be it. If I was locked in a room with the two of them with a gun with one bullet, I'm shooting myself. With that being said, though, who do you got for your dark horse for the men's?
Dark horse, I'd go with Santos Escobar.
Okay.
I'll go with that. We did have, I think it was Chris Brown saying that Damian Priest for him. Then we've got Mike Rainey saying Ricochet is the dark horse and Logan Paul wins. Tim thinks Bronson Reed interferes, takes out the field, leaves it to LA Knight, Priest, and Logan Paul. Yep.
Ricochet's also my dark horse.
Tim says if Finn wins, Priest wins. If Seth wins, Logan Paul wins.
Oh God.
Ugh.
And there's talks of them, like if they do the Logan Paul route, that they could set up for Logan Paul and LA Knight for them to actually end up wrestling for the briefcase, and that's how LA Knight gets the money. No, I don't want to see that again. They ruined it when they had the Miz take it off of freaking Otis, because it was great to see Otis win it, and then like, all right, we're not going to do anything with them, so let's have the Miz do it and hold the title for 8 days and then lose it to Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
But I guess there's only one thing left to do now, and that is the good,
the bad,
and the brainless.
Yeah.
What do you got for your good this week, Cousin Jay?
So as much as I know that this is a fool's challenge every week, I have a lot of respect for WWE Creative trying to Vince-proof the shows. The fact that this is a thing, I'm happy that they tried to do it. I know Vince is like, I don't like this, pal. Take it out. This match is too long, pal. I don't like it. Take it out.
It's such good shit, pal.
So, yeah, I'm going with them trying to Vince-proof shows.
Okay.
Because we know what happens when he gets involved.
That is a very good to have, too. And honestly, for me, I really love that video package they shot with Finn. That was exceptional. I really enjoyed that. I liked a lot of other stuff this week. Okada and Bryan Danielson was a fantastic match. There's a lot of good this week, but I have to give props and credit where props and credit are due, because in the previous 318 episodes in almost exactly 7 years, it's coming up in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Baron Corbin has never gotten my good until today. Hold on. I got a thermometer. I might have to check my temperature and make sure I'm not feeling under the weather. No. That was an absolute – there's nobody else. I'm sorry. I've shat on Baron Corbin on this podcast for many episodes. I couldn't tell you how many times. I mean, you were there. We bum hater, the out on my luck with the mustard stain on my shirt, Baron Corbin. I got nothing left. It was great to see him not only return as the lone wolf, but him and Carmelo Hayes had an exceptional match on Tuesday, and I got to give it to Baron Corbin for this week.
Okay.
What do you got for your bad?
I'm going to go with the My Dog shirt raffle. Sami Zayn trying to do a good thing here, and somebody somewhere sends a cease and desist order. It's like the dude's trying to do something good. And there's somebody out there that, like, stopped it for whatever reason. I don't think you could find me a really good reason to stop that from happening. So whoever did that, as much as like to give you my brainless this week. I'm going in a different direction than that, but that is my bad this week.
It's a very good bad, Cousin Jay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the person who reported 2 of our posts on Facebook yesterday, and then they found nothing wrong with the posts.
Right.
11 more people need to subscribe on YouTube so we can move over to the YouTube. And I'll tell you right now, we'll definitely get back our Twitter audience if we move to YouTube.
Right.
Just a thought. But my bad this week goes to the state of Virginia for making it illegal to watch porn. I'm so kidding. I thought that was – I saw that yesterday and I laughed my ass off. But what really gets my bad for this week is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay.
Okay.
That match, number one, that match was not 1.25 stars better than Steamboat and Savage. That match was not a whole star better than CM Punk and John Cena. That match was not better than Shawn Michaels, that much better than Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. I don't think
it was the triple threat match that we saw at WrestleMania this year.
It wasn't better than Sheamus and Gunther at Clash of the Castle either. Not only that, but Ospreay dropped Kenny on his head. I mean, that was bad. Like, he dropped him on his head. And then, on top of all that, the thing that nobody's, for whatever reason, talking about, Will Ospreay put a bloody Kenny Omega in the crippler crossface in Canada. But we're still going to give it 6 stars, huh, Dave? I just want to know, Dave, at the end of the day, when your head's so far up Kenny and the Bucks' asses, do you know what the little flange in the back of their throat tastes like? I'm just curious. When somebody sneezes, is it you saying bless you coming out of their mouth? And the only reason it got my bad instead of my brainless is because there was something more egregious that happened this week, and I cannot believe I actually said that. What do you have for your brainless?
I'm just going to go with the whole Jungle Boy stuff. The fact that he's in a high-profile anything after what he did for the press tour for All In, and just how his promo wasn't good.
Not at all. Not at all.
And, I mean, it was such a stock promo. There was nothing like going, oh, yeah, great. Like, he's not ready. And I think they could find something better for him to do. I guess we'll see if he sinks or swims at this point. But this is my brainless for this week because, like, he has shown nothing to me to make me feel like he's deserving of having more opportunities. I mean, he did break a record for having the shortest IWGP Heavyweight Championship match in the last, I think it said 17 years. The next shortest one was a Brock Lesnar match in 2006 that lasted like 10 minutes and I think 35 seconds. This match Jungle Boy had was 10 minutes and 42 seconds, which sounds like it's probably about 8 minutes longer than it should have been.
I'm curious if that Brock Lesnar match was against Shinsuke Nakamura, because I know they wrestled once upon a time for the World Heavyweight title.
It was not Nakamura. I forget the name that it was. Go ahead.
That's another match that I want to see is Nakamura versus Lesnar from New Japan.
Yeah.
A young Brock Lesnar versus a young Shinsuke Nakamura, especially with Nakamura's background in MMA, working with Oh, God, yes, please, sign me up.
I just want to point out that Tim and Chris Brown mentioned Solo as they're good for this week.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great pick, too.
Yeah.
And like I said, there was a lot of good this week. But there is one thing that got my brainless, and I'm really surprised that you haven't really mentioned it because it really – I know how it kind of attacks your mental state when it comes to things that WWE and all these other places do booking-wise.
Yeah.
Carmelo Hayes on Raw lost clean to Finn Balor. Now, again, a NXT star on his own coming in and going up against the main roster guy and having a match and the main roster guy winning, that's fine. But when it's your world champion, your guy, the guy down in NXT that you're calling up, that you've kind of just sucked into this storyline a little bit, you shouldn't be bringing him up, especially because he's been booked so well since he beat Braun Breaker back in April. Carmelo Hayes should not be losing non-title matches as your NXT champion. I don't care that if he's your developmental. When Triple H and a bunch of other people backstage are saying it's a third brand again, it's not a good look when he's losing clean to a guy like, and it's nothing against Finn Balor, because Finn Balor is one of the best
heavyweight champion in a few hours.
Yes, but to have your NXT champion lose clean on Raw in his first appearance on the main roster to showcase him as your NXT champion and he loses? Finn Balor could have lost by count out. Any of the 55 members of the Spooky Pals could have interfered and cost Carmelo Hayes this match. I would have been less upset and I would have swapped my bad with my brainless. But your NXT champion losing clean in a non-title match in his first ever match on Raw is just bad, lazy booking.
I don't put it on the same level as when they had Karrion Kross, who was undefeated in NXT, came in, lost to Jeff Harvey, who at the time was like lower end of the card.
It still wasn't as bad as when they had the Good Brothers as tag team champions lose to Roman Reigns in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Roman wasn't a champion. They haven't recovered from that.
Sad.
Those two have not recovered from that one. But
all right,
if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you subscribe to us on YouTube 11 more times, we got our 50 subscribers so we can go live on YouTube. But if you do that, we will do it back. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will always do it back, because that has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are live on the Facebooks. Also, subscribe to us on Spotify, because put the podcast there. Clearly, with a show like this, trying to put it on YouTube or trying to put it on Spotify before we have Money in the Bank probably won't happen. But I do try to get it up within a couple days of whatever. But usually there are fun things that we do talk about that are not related to whatever pay-per-view is coming up. So
yes,
yeah. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to all that stuff and set up those dang notifications. Yeah. Saying his brainless is not having an opponent set up for Rhea Ripley. Okay.
Well, technically, because Sammy and KO defended the tag team titles last night, she did defend the title last night against Charlotte. And Bianca came in and hit the EST on both Rhea and Charlotte. That's
setting up a threat match
for SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Potentially. And that's why I'm kind of like, why would they put Charlotte? I mean, I swear, if Charlotte's in this freaking match, I'm going to be so pissed.
Ugh.
I'm just letting you know, spoiler alert, if Charlotte Flair gets inserted into this match the day of Money in the Bank, after I'm already still pissed off about the fact that Logan Paul got in without even getting a qualifying match. Oh, boy. But I think that's it, I think. I think we've covered all the bases for the podcast.
You think so?
And we did talk about the Forbidden Door. Wait. Well, you know what? It's like the old saying. 2 Curtis Axels are better than 1. Do you know why that is, Curtis Axel? I know what it is. Do you know what it is, Brainless One? I know you went to Bristol Eastern, so I don't know if you know how to put 2 and 2 together. But I will say this. It's today, July 1st, 3 days before this country's birthday. I, Curtis Axel, have been alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble for 3,079 days. Which is why I'm in your guys' Hall of Fame. Yes, and you are the first ever inductee into our Hall of Fame too there, Curtis Axel.
Yeah.
Yeah? With Sean O.
Chris Brown saying he believes Bianca is turning heel. But not for her at this point. I mean, she doesn't have the title, so not the worst.
I hope not, because there's going to be a very upset 8-year-old in my house if Bianca Belair turns heel. Yeah. But anyway, for episode 319 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is
Brainless.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant I am the Brainless One. Make sure you mark out
with your walkout. Enjoy Money in the Bank, and we will chat you up next week.
Yeah?
Yeah. Let me talk to you.
Yeah. I'll come up with something if LA Knight actually wins tonight. I'll do something for one of the episodes of the podcast if the planets align the way they're supposed to and LA Knight is victorious.
Yeah.
I will post it on social media when it happens, when I think of it. Yeah.
We'll have a yeah-a-thon.
Oh, goodness gracious. We always have a yeah-a-thon.
At the woo-off, we have a yeah-a-thon.
Yeah?
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah?
All right. See you, Cousin Bobby.
Later, Cousin Jay. Yeah?